You're watching In Search of Fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to In Search of Fun. John, it is Friday. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty good. I got a bug from the kids, but we were treated to one of the better game awards in recent memory when it comes to all the reveals and all the exciting things last night. And yeah, hey, it's Friday. How can you not be happy on a Friday?
Yeah. Well, John, you are not one to bury the lead. And as you mentioned, we're here to talk about the Game Awards. That happened last night. Big production. We'll talk a little bit about that. There were a number of winners, mostly what we expected to see, but, some big milestones set that we'll talk about in a second. And then, of course, the Game Awards is one half winners from the year that was, in this case, 2025. And in the other half, it's a ton of unveils. And as we were talking about offline, when I joined the gaming industry 15 years ago, that was really E3. It would happen in June in LA, big production, the Microsofts and the Sonys and the Take-Twos of the world sometimes, but often the Microsofts and the Sonys would rent out whole theaters, they would do big shows, and they would put their third-party partners on stage and really make a whole production of the games that they have coming in the next, call it 12 to 24 months is generally the time frame. Well, E3 is gone. It is, no longer a part of the gaming industry. There's still an opportunity to announce some games, especially if you're a European development studio or publisher at Gamescom in Cologne, Germany in August. But for the most part, the Game Awards has become the number one place to unveil a new game. Would you agree?
Yeah, there's three primary spots that this happens when publishers don't do it themselves. Obviously, Sony has their State of Play, Nintendo has their Nintendo Directs where they do their own set of unveilings, and then you see a smattering of small, very focused unveilings from publishers. We saw that with Red Dead Redemption 2. We saw that with Borderlands 3 or 4 from Take-Two back in the day. But ultimately, it comes down to Summer Games Fest, which is in that E3 time frame. And that is a Jeff Keighley-led production, and that is in June. Gamescom opening night, as you referred to it, and that's in August. And those are really close to each other, so you get some reveals. But ultimately, what it really comes down to is this close to a 4-hour production in the Game Awards, and it is 12 to 24 months. The reveals that we got, those that had dates, because we did get a number of reveals that didn't have dates. The farthest out that any date was thrown out was 2027.
Yeah. And, I got to say credit to Jeff Keighley because he has built this thing from essentially nothing into a massive production that, as somebody who's worked with a lot of studio heads and development leaders, this matters to developers, just like winning an Oscar matters to an actor or a director on the film side. The Game Awards has gotten to a place where it really matters. And I think you see that not just in how many consumers turn up to watch it, but the attendance across the industry is really massive for this event. And I think we saw that again this week. The house was packed.
It wasn't just packed in person as well. And I mean, this is something that started off as kind of an afterthought on the Spike TV and has grown every single year. Yeah, God bless Spike TV.
If you're under the age of 18, you are probably looking up what Spike, maybe 20, 21, you might be looking up what Spike TV is right now.
And this started over 10 years ago. This started in 2014, and it was by sheer force of will that Jeff Keighley evolved and iterated it year over year to the point where the production value is insane. People tune in from all around the world to watch it live, to get those reveals, and then also learn who won these awards. And a lot of these he rips through, but the big ones, he does give a moment and gravitas. And the way that he gets the LA Philharmonic to give that medley of the Game of the Year nominees and the soundtracks that really accompany and embody each of those games, it is a thing of beauty, and it is very impressive and moving.
It is. So let's talk about what went down. And first, let's talk about the award winners. The Game of the Year, built on a $10 million budget, Claire Obscure Expedition 33. No surprise there. It was a 96% yes on call sheet going into it. So they were almost a lock to win it, but they beat some big games in Death Stranding 2, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hades 2, Hollow Knight Silksong, which we discussed, and what I thought might be the best game of the year, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, an absolute gem.
The only game that really could have, sorry, let me back up. I've played all of these. And I enjoyed the hell out of all of these. Yes, I'm a huge nerd and gamer.
That's why you are here. Because I have not played all of these. I played half of these.
Expedition 33 was a cut above everything else in a year that we came into this wondering who was going to be left out, because there were other games that were at this same quality. It has been a loaded 2025. But
who do you think has the most legitimate claim for being snubbed?
Oh, for being snubbed?
For being snubbed, not for being, for not even making the category.
Ghost of Tsushima, probably. And, like, for yes, Death Stranding 2 was there, but for a Sony first-party game to not make the nomination for Game of the Year, that's almost unheard of.
And Yote is an incredibly beautiful game.
Yes. Did I say Tsushima? I meant Yote.
You did, but, I mean, it's the franchise. I knew exactly what you meant. I think
Ghost of Yote. And it's this whole thing where Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was the biggest potential spoil to Expedition 33 if there was an argument to be made for there being anybody else in that triple S tier. But Expedition 33, I could go on and on for hours about the beauty, the cast, the intimate setting, the pacing, what makes this game incredible, without even touching on what you already said, where the fact that it was made on a sub $10 million budget, the small amount of people that came together to make it, the story behind it, where the director behind it left Ubisoft because he said, I'm never going to have my game made here because of what they're focused on. I need to go take a risk and do this myself. The fact that they got Charlie Cox to be in it, like, end to end, incredible. And they deserved every single award they won.
And John, they won 9. They set a record. They won 9 awards last night. Incredible.
Outstanding.
Were there any award winners that surprised you? Or any, I mean, I guess it's the same question to say, was there anybody who didn't win that surprised you, which would inherently mean that there was somebody who did win that surprised you. So
I mean, No Man's Sky winning best ongoing is like, we're getting into the niche and we're getting into the nitty gritty on like, okay, what's the deep cuts that I would have to go look at? I mean, I expected Expedition 33 to clean up, and best ongoing, I really expected that to be Helldivers 2 or Fortnite, and it going to No Man's Sky, like, good for that team for getting it done. I thought that was really impressive. But no, I mean, everything else went the way that I thought it would. The only other one that potentially could have gone a different way was best audio design in Battlefield 6, but typically in a game where surround sound audio and the unique notifications and tells and keys to what's going on in that clusterfuck of an environment where you are in a 32v32 environment, the way that they built all of the systems, when you're in the middle of a firefight and the other team is running defibrillators and picking themselves up and you need to go stop that, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I was happy that Hollow Knight won Best Action Adventure Game. I wasn't sure that it would. I thought that might go again to Ghost of Yote or to Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which had a little bit of mixed reviews, but for the most part, people seem to really enjoy it as kind of like the equivalent of a popcorn movie. And so I was happy to see Hollow Knight win that. I was a little bit disappointed just how far fighting games have fallen. That, best fighting game was Fatal Fury, and, it was up against a Capcom Fighting Collection, a Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, a Virtua Fighter 5, remake. It just, you and I grew up playing fighting games. I especially grew up playing fighting games. I played a ton of fighting games, all of them out there. I mean, I remember the Soul Calibur days on Dreamcast, and it's just that is one of the spaces that, now there's Street Fighter, there's Mortal Kombat, and when those two franchises aren't launching in a year, there's really not a lot.
This year has been a down year for new releases in fighting games, but I'm actually going to push back on that. 2XKO had its kind of soft release, and they're in the middle of tons of content updates. That's out of Riot, the makers of League of Legends and Valorant, and there's a big investment there. And then we also have a new Marvel game that looks really neat. Fighting Souls Token or something like that. It's an anime-inspired Marvel game that looks really cool. Invincible, the Amazon Prime show that was based on the comics by Robert Kirkman, the same guy who did The Walking Dead.
Mhm.
They have a tag fighter that looks really cool right around the corner.
Okay.
So there is fighting games it's interesting because you get BlazBlue games every other year. It feels like Fatal Fury games release quite frequently. King of Fighters is still there. It's just, this has been kind of, like I said, a bit of a down year.
Yeah, and I don't know how you feel about this. We both worked on the WWE 2K franchise at points in our career, and I would argue that best fighting game, the category should really be best combat game, and then WWE should be in there and not sports. Do you disagree or agree with that take?
I actually do agree with that, because then it would take into account games like Undisputed, games like UFC, and then if EA was ever to get back into boxing in full, having a fight night round, 5 or whatever we're at right now, it would also incorporate those games as well, because combat sports is so much bigger than. Yeah.
I completely agree. Okay, so the other category that caught my eye was best family game. There are a lot of good games in this category. Lego Party is in this category, just released a couple of months ago, I believe in late September. That's a really fun game. Mario Kart World. I mean, Mario Kart is a very polished franchise. They're never going to release a game that's not really strong. Sonic Racing in the family game, but didn't make it in the racing category, which is interesting.
Which is really weird, because it reviewed really well.
So well.
Don't tell my kids it's under the Christmas tree right now.
Well, I love that for them because your kids are at the perfect age for that. Both of my girls, your nieces, Olivia and Hallie, got into gaming through Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. And poor little Hallie's hands weren't even big enough for the controller. And so she was having to do all kinds of janky things just to play. But, it's a great starting point for kids. It definitely, when I think of family games, I certainly think of Sonic Racing as a great one. I was surprised that it was Donkey Kong Bonanza that won. I have a Switch too. I have Donkey Kong Bonanza. Thank you, Nintendo, for providing both of those. I think Donkey Kong Bonanza is a fine game. It didn't resonate with me the way that it resonated with a lot of people. And that was disappointing because I loved the Donkey Kong Country games back in the day. That was, when I was in that, 13-year-old range playing games like that. But it didn't feel like a family game to me. Can you sell me on why that's in the family game category besides the fact that it's a kid-friendly game, which is different to me?
It's also weird because Split Fiction is in this category, and this feels almost like a consolation prize for those games that were not going to win Game of the Year. But, Joseph Ferris has a really strong relationship with Jeff Keighley. Jeff Keighley was not going to snub Hazelight and give them a little bit more exposure. And, for fair purpose, Split Fiction is an incredible game. Donkey Kong Bonanza is the first party release outside of Mario Kart World from Nintendo this year. It's made by the guys who made Mario Odyssey, and that's why it doesn't hit quite the same as Donkey Kong Country is. It really is like Mario Odyssey with a Donkey Kong skin. It shares some of the same characters. Pauline's in both of those. But what I think this category is really intended to show is what is the best game that you would buy your kids that they could play end to end. And, this is the same thing that comes up every year when a Forza Horizon comes out and it's a 96 on Metacritic, and it's well, that should be in contention for Game of the Year. And my thing is nah, it shouldn't, because there's no campaign, there's no character development, there's no story. Mechanically, it is a phenomenal game, but when you look at the experience from an end to end, when you start the story and finish the story, what is the journey you go on? I think that's what they're aiming for this category and why it went to Donkey Kong Bonanza. That's the only thing I can think of with Donkey Kong Bonanza winning it, when all of these other games, except again, Split Fiction, it's almost like you have two categories of subcategories of best family game in this, where Voyager's Party, Mario Kart World, and Sonic Racing kind of fit that we're all going to sit down on a couch game and we're going to play a couple sessions together, and there's going to be no real progress in a metaphysical or a meta sense made, versus the other is like we are working through a story and we are working through a campaign.
Agreed. All right, last category, and I have to hit on this because I love sports. Mario Kart World won sports and racing. It beat out NBA 2K26, a franchise that is very near and dear to my heart, and what I think, as objectively as I can be, is the most complete, well-rounded, diverse sports franchise out there. It beat out EA Sports FC26. It beat out Skate 4. For my money, the best sports game of 2025 in terms of polish, in terms of leaps forward, in terms of pleasing the consumer base is PGA Tour 2K25. I get that is not the type of franchise that's going to get as much attention in a category like this. This category gets almost no attention in the show, and that's all fine. But I think that title is missing from this list, and I would easily have slotted it in over Cruise and Hyper or, I don't know, maybe there should be a separate racing category, but it just feels like it should be on this list when we're talking about the top sports games of the year.
It might be crazy, but it feels like this used to be its own award, and they had sports and racing fractured out into two different awards, and it is such
different experiences.
Such different experiences, and you're comparing apples and oranges, and you're forced to just use Metacritic as a bar, and how do you compare the sim depth of an NBA or the passion and the equivalence of hitting a beautiful drive follow-up shot and then sinking a 25-foot putt for bird to, hey, I played a Mario Kart World Grand Tour with my kids. Like it's two different audiences, and it's just so hard to marry that up.
I agree. Well, John, again, it was a great award show. Really happy for everybody who won, especially the teams behind them, because making games is really, really hard. Making games that perform well critically is hard, commercially is hard. It's great to see them get some shine. But again, it's not just about the awards that were handed out last night. It's also about all of the reveals that we got to see from the start to the end of that 3.5-hour show. You broke everything down into categories. Will you tell us what those categories are? And Jeopardy style, where on the board do you want to start?
Yeah, so this is based on what interests me as a hardcore gamer. So I'm a little biased in these categories, but I basically have it set into the great, the good, and meh, not really worried about it. That doesn't really move the needle. Reports were that it was $1 million for a 3-minute commercial, because recognize this is a business, and I think some of the biggest heavy hitters, Keeley probably waives that because he needs something to draw in eyeballs. I was having a spirited debate with one of my buddies on, hey, if GTA 6 were to have a trailer there, or if Half-Life 3, because every trailer he was saying, is this going to be Half-Life? It's going to be Half-Life? And I have to break it to him all the time that Half-Life 3 is not coming. I'm sorry. No. Valve makes money. They don't make games. But let's go ahead and start with the great. I want to start with what captivated me and what gave me that, oh shit moment. And the very first one of those starts with this weird statue that was put up in the desert and kept everybody guessing. And that's Divinity. Divinity from Larian Studios. And it was a bit of a cat and mouse from Larian, where they told everybody.
They were denying it.
And they didn't lie. They said, we are not working on Divinity Original Sin 3. This is the company that made Baldur's Gate 3. They won Game of the Year last year or 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago, because Astrobot won last year. Yeah, so they won Game of the Year 2 years ago, and they're not backed by a major publisher. They set out to make a game for gamers, by gamers, and god damn did they succeed. Not only did they kind of reset what you can do when you just set out to make a good game, they also kind of reset the discount curve, because they still don't go down less than, I think, 20%, and they're doing just fine. Before Baldur's Gate 3, they made Divinity Original Sin 1 and Divinity Original Sin 2. Dennis, you know how hard it is to get a game that has a 90+ Metacritic. They've done it 3 times in a row. Larian doesn't miss. And they said, we're not making Divinity Original Sin 3. They came out and they're just making Divinity. And this game doesn't have a release date. They said very quickly, this is for mature audiences. And boy, that trailer, holy shit. Do not let kids watch that trailer because there is a lot of stuff going on. So that's number one for me.
I could not agree more. The Divinity trailer stuck with me. I thought about it after the show. I thought about it when I got up today. And you know what was really impressive to me is Divinity has not historically been a massive franchise, especially on console. But the way that they built that trailer, I don't care who you are. I don't care what types of games, in quotes, because games have blended so many genres. I don't care what types of games you think you like or don't like. That trailer is going to bring people to the table. And it is 2 years away, but that is now logged on people's radars. And I think if they deliver, like, you know, again, if we were going to bet on it, we're going to bet a lot of money on Larian to deliver. And we're not going to get a lot of return because the odds aren't great. I mean, let's be really honest. Everybody expects them to deliver. This is, I mean, it just jumped out as game of the year. It's like when you see the trailer for a movie and you're like, assuming that thing lives up to the trailer, that's an Oscar movie.
It's Daniel Day-Lewis, right? Oh, Daniel Day-Lewis is starring in that? Oh, he just wants another Oscar. He came out of retirement. That's going to be up for Best Picture. Okay.
Yep. Now, going the other direction, going to big, massive IP, not only are hardcore gaming fans and the broader gaming audience going to get excited about Divinity, but if this game actually launches, Fate of the Old Republic is probably going to be one of the best-selling Star Wars games ever. I mean, KOTOR was like, it felt like when I worked at Microsoft, 80% of the people that worked within Xbox, it was on their top 5 list. And then, you know, we got so far away from KOTOR and there were these kind of obviously misguided hopes that we would get the franchise back. And now it looks like we are really going to.
KOTOR is a top 5 game of all time for me. I believe it's number 3 or number 4. It was a formative game. I remember it came out on the original Xbox, and it's one of the first games that I could not put down. And I looked up and I had dumped 100 hours in, and I couldn't believe it. Not only are we getting Fate of the Old Republic, but Casey Hudson is leading the development on it, and he was the original person who was kind of the brainchild, not just behind KOTOR, because you got to remember, this was BioWare at its peak before they kind of slipped down. He also led development on the original Mass Effect trilogy. So there are expectations, but there is a pedigree behind this that it is just... I really hope this doesn't get canceled in 5 years. I know how games can go, but seeing this pop up, it was another just holy shit moment. No release date.
Now, to your point, I don't think this is like next 2 years. I think Divinity is probably next 24 to 36 months. I don't know that Fate of the Old Republic is going to be out before 2029.
I think that's fair. That's accurate. That very well could be a PS6 game.
Okay, so now going back to another, what I would call foundational gaming IP, this trailer that I was second most excited about, because KOTOR was not in my top 5. That was not really my type of game. But Tomb Raider sure the hell was. And getting this Tomb Raider remake with this incredible rendering of Lara Croft, seeing the worlds that she is flying through, took me back to the original. And I cannot wait to play this game. This is one of many IPs that I believe so much time has passed. You know, we've talked about BioShock. So much time has passed that the world needs proper remakes of these, because whole generations of gamers, not just the current generation that's been aging in over the last few years, but the generation before that doesn't really know what these games are. And Tomb Raider didn't go away in the same way that a BioShock did. But this is going to be Tomb Raider's roots in a way that Tomb Raider Rise, Tomb Raider Shadow, like those just didn't get back to fully.
Yeah, I mean, you have the trilogies for 1, 2, and 3, and then 4, 5, and 6. And it's great that they're there, but the tank controls that were necessity because you know, when those released on the PlayStation, the DualShock hadn't been invented yet, which is kind of nuts to think about. Remember back where on the original PS1, it originally launched without analog sticks, and that was something they added mid-generation, which was kind of wild. And this is a full remake of that first game. It's coming out in 2026. It looks incredibly gorgeous. It's you know, Atlantis based. I'm so glad they didn't just call it Tomb Raider Super Deluxe Remake or whatever. They actually, you know, gave it a good name. And then we are getting a brand new game in the end, or in the series in 2027. I believe both are from Crystal Dynamics. They're the ones who made the Survivor trilogy, as you referenced. That Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which, you know, heavy RPG elements. They took the series a different way. They tried to make a more grounded series, but then there was this just weird dissonance between Laura Croft and her reaction to violence in the cutscenes and then what you actually did playing the character. And the story got way off the rails, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider was just, I don't know, a bit of a disappointment.
Like, I was disappointed at how disappointed I was in that game.
It's really exciting to see that we're getting another crack at it, and, you know, we get to let them see and learn and make that reimagining of one, and hopefully we get 2 and 3. And then we get to see Catalyst and what Catalyst is going to be.
Well, and I will give them a huge tip of the cap, because I think from a business perspective, you and I both know how difficult it is to find your audience in this industry. It's tremendously expensive from a marketing perspective. Not only do I think they're going to make bank on the remake of Tomb Raider, but I think that is going to both reactivate the Tomb Raider audience that, you know, like people like me who wanted to go back to the roots would rather have a remake than jump into the next thing. But I promise you, if the remake is great, all that's going to do is massively expand the audience for the new game that they're going to put out in the franchise, even if that game doesn't necessarily live up to the remake. If they can hit that 1-year timeline, I think this is going to be a huge commercial success for Crystal Dynamics and for the Tomb Raider franchise.
Absolutely. Huge get for Amazon Game Studios as well.
Absolutely. And they need this. They need this. New World was the last hit that they had?
The last hit, yeah. And that, you know, that came and went. It had its moment in the sun.
Sold a lot of units.
It did. But it didn't.
And it was cheap, right? Wasn't it like
$40? $40,
yeah.
But it also, a lot of people kind of looked at it as a 90-minute Metacritic, where it was an incredible start, but the end game and the staying power just wasn't there. I mean, it was an MMO.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you want to go next?
I mean, there's one more like big game in the Great, and then there's like 3 that nobody not named John Ceccarelli are going to care as much about as I do. But yeah. Control Resonant, like now that we finally are getting the Control sequel out of Remedy, they just released Alan Wake 2 a few years ago. There were some nods to Control in there. But this one I'm stoked about. Control came out in 2019. It was a weird, different kind of game. And, you know, there's, at least in my friends group, there's a little bit of debate on if this is a 3D Metroidvania or not, and I think it does. It was in contention for Game of the Year in 2019 in kind of a down year where Sekiro ended up winning that year. And they've been a little dormant. They just had Firebreak, which didn't really work out for them. But after Alan Wake 2, we're stoked to see where we're getting back to for Control. It's a different protagonist. It's leaving the old building. And there's a lot to be excited about in this trailer.
I can't wait to dive into this next Control experience. You're right. It's been too long. Not too long. We would always rather have the game be great and right than soon. But this was a big one. So now that we've gotten the big heavy hitters out of the way in the great group, can we talk about Mega Man? Because this takes me back to my roots, and you and I both have the same perspective that any Mega Man is great Mega Man.
Mega Man is one of my favorite franchises of all time. I've beaten the 8-bit series time and time again. I loved 7, even though it was a bit weird. 9 and 10 being 8-bit and a huge throwback. Like, I am so glad we're getting this. I loved 11, and 11 when it came out of the blue, even though it was this kind of 2D retro shade, was weird. But the fact that we get another one, I'm stoked. I'm stoked. I can't wait.
This does feel like the kind of IP that has gone dormant across the industry. And so it is really great to see Mega Man still surviving and hopefully commercially thriving, because I'd love to see Mega Man continue and not have it just be something we tell our kids about as they get older, but as something that, they get to experience fresh, new versions of Mega Man as well. And then finally, I know, or not finally, I know you've got two more on this list, but I want to get to Ace Combat 8 because you and I both grew up in a house where our dad only ever played two video games ever. The first one was Quake 2, and we had a period in our family where we had multiple computers connected via LAN and we were playing Quake 2. But the other game that he played was Comanche, the helicopter combat game. He loved that game. There hasn't been a Comanche, like a proper Comanche, since I think 2001. And really, aerial combat has gone away for the most part. But Ace Combat, always the best franchise. Like, to your point on Forza Horizon earlier, it isn't just flying around and shooting shit. There is actually a story to it. They invest a lot of effort into that. And Ace Combat 8 doesn't just look beautiful. It looks really fun in the skies. And it looks like, again, they've brought all those constituent pieces together to make it feel like a real experience and story to be told.
Absolutely. Ace Combat 7, you can still find that. You can still play it. One of the things that really frustrates me about this series, I want to go back and play 4, 5, and 6, and it's just, you can't find them anywhere. I think
Is that true?
You can't find, they're not on Steam, so I don't know where to go. I think I would have to probably emulate them, but they are not easily playable.
Those are PS3 era, right?
Yeah.
So you'd have to get, well, I mean, do you have
4 might be PS2.
Hmm.
Because 1 through 3, they released those really quick on PSX, and you can't find those on Steam like I would expect them to be. But Ace Combat 8 looks freaking gorgeous. The story for Ace Combat 7 was fantastic. The last 2 missions I still remember, and like, those games are just so fun to play. And when you think about wanting that power fantasy of flying a freaking fighter jet and going through dogfights and taking down these huge kind of, it's a little bit of anime when you think about like the giant ships that get made with 20 different engines, and you need to be tactical about how you pick them apart and the weapon configurations you go into these battles with. Like,
it's not Flight Simulator.
No, but it's so fun. And I cannot wait for this one to come around.
Absolutely. There's one more game on your great list. It's Gang of Dragon. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, this is from the creator of Yakuza. We're getting what looks like a more grounded, more guns-based game, where the Yakuza series kind of gone way more on the fantasy turn-based franchise. Now they call it Like a Dragon to better align with how it is marketed in the East. In the East, it was always called Like a Dragon. In the West, it was Yakuza for 1 through 6, and they rebranded it for 7. But it looks sick. It looks really neat. You play as an actual gangster. No release date yet, I don't think. But that's one that, just as a huge nerd when it comes to the Like a Dragon games, I'm very excited for.
And look, we know that people love playing as a gangster. I mean, from Grand Theft Auto to the Mafia, the Old Country game that released back in August, people love the gangster lifestyle. And there used to be a ton of gangster focus games out there, that it felt like that genre kind of peaked and then valleyed a little bit, and now we're getting some good games in there. So speaking of the good, we've gotten through the great. Divinity, Control, Tomb Raider, Fate of the Old Republic, Mega Man, Gang of Dragon, and Ace Combat 8. What is in the good category, John?
First one that comes to mind is Star Wars Galactic Racer. And they made a pod racing game on the PS2 that obviously aligned with Episode 1, where pod racing was a big deal. Now this is pod racing, was, the meme. But it actually looks pretty incredible. The depth of racing looks really cool. The customization of your pods looks really cool. There's going to be a decent audience for this. The only thing that gives me pause, after Hogwarts Legacy, WB tried to make a Quidditch game, and it just didn't hit. That could be the same thing with Galactic Racer. But on the surface, it looks really pretty and it looks really fun.
I will only play this game if I can play as Jar Jar Binks. That's it.
I
can't play as Jar Jar, I'm out.
You make it very hard to love you sometimes. Next game on the list actually isn't a game, but it's an expansion. Diablo 4
One of the
has
few expansions that were announced, really, which is interesting in this era of live services where we have all of these ongoing, persistent games that we really didn't get much in the way of big expansion, big live service news in the Game Awards.
100%, but when it comes to Diablo 4, like an expansion almost is a new game. It is a huge, meaty piece of content with a brand new story, brand new characters, new ways to play the game. And, I played Diablo 4 when it launched. I loved it. The end game did not hold me. I actually did not go back for their first expansion, but, I have friends who they dipped back in. This is really exciting for them. This is exciting for Blizzard, now Microsoft. And it looks incredible, as you would expect from a Blizzard cinematic. It looks gorgeous, and it has a captivating story, really well made and high production value. So it's pretty good.
Okay, so now you've got two games that are in the good list that were actually, like, if I was making this list as not quite a hardcore gamer, maybe not a casual, like more of a mid-core gamer, given my background, I have two games that I would have had in that higher tier. And the first one is No Law. I was so excited about that No Law trailer. I think as you and I were talking about, the stealth combat looks really exciting. Kind of the visceral nature of that game and the environment is something that drew me in. What did you think of the No Law trailer, and why was it in good and not great for you?
So I really enjoyed what I saw. Cyberpunk has set the bar so high for those types of environments and games. The other part of it is, look, I played The Ascent. I loved The Ascent. Played it end to end, but I know kind of the ceiling of what I think this studio can make. And while I think this will be a really good game, and if it's on Game Pass, that'll be really great for them, just like The Ascent was. But I think there are going to be some things that hold it back. There's some of the shooting looked a little generic, and I've seen it. It looks kind of by the book. So while the story and the setting look really fascinating, and it's corporations kind of have come in just very similar to The Ascent, and they're the ones who set down the law, the rules, and they keep things moving in this cyberpunk scenario. That's where I set. Where, like, I'm interested, but it's not going to be a day one game for me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I can understand that. And, it may turn out that, kind of like Saints Row to GTA, it may turn out that it's, one of the less impressive releases. But it also could impress. Like I said, I was really drawn in by the environment. The other game, which very environment based, and also, as somebody who's lived in the gaming space for so long, Resident Evil. And I was a little surprised that you didn't have this on the great list. And look, it wasn't any shock to anybody that you're going to be able to play as Leon, a worst kept secret in gaming, as you've mentioned. But I love Resident Evil as a franchise. The first couple of Resident Evils were incredible, thrilling survival games. Resident Evil 4 was like a bullet sponge shooter, and that was a lot of fun as a diversion from what the games were before that. I'm really looking forward to Resident Evil 9. Why did this get the good treatment from you?
So I'm going to admit something. I'm already sold. I fucking loved, sorry language, you can bleep me if you want. Resident Evil 7 was an incredible callback in a first-person setting to that survival horror. Resident Evil 8 or Resident Evil Village was amazing. I don't need to be sold on Resident Evil 9. I have deliberately avoided trailers. I've avoided these. So I haven't actually watched this because I don't need to be sold. This is a day one purchase for me. So I have it in good, but like, that's probably not fair. I should probably have just abstained from having it on my list. But also, like, the other part of it is when we're talking about reveals, this is reveal like number 3. We've seen it announced. We've seen the very first big trailer, which I believe was at Gamescom Online or Gamescom opening night. So like, it's like, okay, well, we know when it's coming out. We know what to expect. This one is like legit. That's why I call it good, is it's like, well, the new information we're getting is you get to play as Leon. And for me, it's like, well, I mean, we kind of already know that.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. You've sold me. It's in the good category. You've got 2 more in the good category. Where do you want to go next?
Saros. And this is from Housemark. I believe
I'm not familiar with this one. This one was a new name to me. I didn't play Returnal. Tell us more.
So Housemarque has made a few different games for Sony before. I believe they are a part of the Sony studios now. They got acquired after launching Returnal, which was one of the very first PS5 exclusives. But they've made a bunch of games for PlayStation and for Sony that have all been really good. They predominantly were twin stick shooters. The last one was Alien Nation, I believe, on PS4. And then they really brought it in the AAA space with Returnal, which was a roguelike bullet hell third person shooter that was really difficult, and you had to, I actually put it down, then came back to it years later and fell in love with it. This game looks like more of the same, and that is a really good thing, except the story looks a lot more in depth. It's led by the guy from iZombie, who's a huge gamer. I really like him. His name is escaping me at the moment, but he's a great actor. And just the setting, the way that we're seeing the gameplay and the combat and everything looks like it is the spiritual successor, but they've evolved and innovated what made the formula of Returnal so good. It has me stoked. I can't wait for Sorrows.
Awesome. And then you've got Pragmata on the list, which, again, I was very impressed with what we saw, but not a game that was familiar to me.
Yeah, this is one that we've seen pop up a few different times now. This is where we're finally starting to see gameplay show up. The reason I have this in good is I'm interested. This reminds me a bit of Astral Chain, which was a game on the Switch by Platinum, in the sense that, they took a different tact and made gameplay different. It does not look like something we've seen before, and that's always going to draw me in. When you innovate and do, zig when everybody else is zagging in your gameplay, all right, I'll give it a look.
Awesome. And then the last thing on the good list, which I completely agree with, but it's not a game, it was the Street Fighter movie. Now, Street Fighter for me is always going to be Jean-Claude Van Damme back in the day, like, old school Street Fighter, but this movie looks awesome.
It looks
so
cheesy.
Awesome.
Cheesy, and that's what this needs.
It's a popcorn movie.
Yes.
Yeah, it can't be too serious.
It looks, Jason Momoa as Blanca has me so excited. It's got Cody Rhodes in his Guile, and you've met with Cody. He's one of the nicest guys out there. It's got Roman Reigns in there as Akuma, and the fact that they're including Akuma at all is freaking awesome. I cannot wait to go see this. It's like competing with Mortal Kombat 2, which is a hearkening back to when those two were, going head to head on the Super Nintendo and in arcades. And I'm just excited that we're getting more of this. And this is a movie that I will absolutely go see in theaters.
Yeah,
I can't
same.
wait.
Now, I go see a lot of movies in theaters. I don't know how many you go see these days, but I'm definitely going to the movies quite a bit. And this is going to be on the list day one. That takes us through, though, the great and the good. It gets us into the meh and the outright disappointing. We don't have to go through every single one of these, but in the meh category, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
There's a lot
8.
in there.
There's a lot, man. We've got about 12 different entries. What are the 2 or 3 that jumped out to you that maybe, if somebody had said there's going to be a trailer for this game, you would have been hopeful, and based on what you saw, you came away meh?
007 First Light, the news we got there is that, hey, Lenny Kravitz is the villain. And yeah, I guess that's cool, but like...
Is it?
Well, that's where I'm getting at is, hey, Far Cry 6 tried this with Giancarlo Esposito when he was coming off of Breaking Bad, and it was going to be so cool. And then he was in a 70-hour game for a total of 10 minutes, and it was very misleading, but also, like, I'm sorry, we just don't need celebrities being... the face of this. We saw this with Kevin Spacey before he got all icky in Call of Duty. This feels like, I don't know. Something feels off about this 007 game, and I've typically been right when my gut tells me this looks weird in trailers. Avengers was another one where I remember saying the combat doesn't look satisfying. This is not a good thing. So that's where I'd start. There were a bunch of random things that popped up. The other thing I'll say is, like, Highguard as the final reveal is super disappointing. We do not need another hero shooter, and that being your one more thing that you left audiences with. That kind of sours the show in what otherwise was an incredible show, start to finish, with tons of good and great stuff. He could have had something better to end on.
or maybe he couldn't.
They also probably paid him a lot of money to be that. We are the announcement before Game of the Year.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree. Why were you mad on Total War? I'm not a Total War player, but that's obviously a big franchise.
It just doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
Total War, I respect what it does. It hooks an audience in a big way, but it is an incredibly nuanced and mechanically difficult game to get into. I have tons of games in my catalog and at my disposal. When it's the same reason I don't play League of Legends. When I'm told it's going to take you 200 hours to get competent and not just get your butt kicked. Total War is a single player game. And so like when I'm being told, hey, it's going to take you 100 hours to wrap your head around and find the fun, like it has its audience. It just doesn't resonate with me. I respect what it is and what it does.
That's fair. One of the games that I would hope would resonate with me, because I love Lego games and I love the Lego DC Universe games that they built over the years, was Lego Batman. But that one just fell flat for me. How did you feel about that?
I'm really excited for it. But again, it's kind of like what I said about Resident Evil 9. This is the third time we're seeing it. We already know that it's kind of a Lego spiritual successor to the Arkham games in the Christopher Nolan universe. And that's really exciting. But for me, it's just like, okay, we've seen it. I don't need to see more. It is what it is. You're not giving me really any new information. Like, this is definitely Warner Bros. Paying to be there and, making sure that people are aware of it. So for me, it's just kind of like, meh, okay, got it.
I guess I was just surprised because, as we've talked about, when you have these long announced to release periods, you can get people more excited or you can make them less excited. And for me, I just came away a little less excited about Lego Batman, and that obviously wasn't the goal.
100%. Yeah.
So, anything else on this list that you want to talk about in the mech category before we move on? I guess that's really it, right?
Yeah, Phantom Blade Zero. I will say it looks really cool. It looks really flashy. The gameplay looks fun, but it's another stylish Soulsborne with a sword game, and that genre is getting very difficult, very bloated, and we have a lot of high quality games in that space that come out. I mean, it's like our dad used to say, a lot of people can hit a fastball. So it's really hard to break through, and that's where I'm at with Phantom Blade Zero, where it's like, yeah, it looks like you guys made a really good game, but sheesh, that is a tough genre right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, John, Lords of the Fallen is the last one I want to ask you about. Lords of the Fallen was in Game Pass in the past. I've played it. It was a really good game. Why did you not get excited about Lords of the Fallen?
Lords of the Fallen 2, which is the third one in the franchise, because Lord of the Fallen was the first one, and then Lords of the Fallen was the second one, and now we're in this weird thing where it's like you had Red Dead Revolver first. People don't realize that Red Dead Redemption is a trilogy.
Second game, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's I'm sure it'll be good, but it's the same type of thing. There are so many of these games now, and like, if you want to play a Soulsborne, you have your pick of the litter, and the non Miyazaki Soulsborne game that I am most excited for that hasn't come out yet is actually the sequel to Lies of P, which we know is going to be Wizard of Oz themed by the ending. Sorry for the spoilers. The game's been out for quite a while now. But that's the one where, hey, Lies of P, I had zero expectations going into, but that exceeded across the board, and that's the one I want. And sorry, but there's just so many Soulsborne games out there that...
There are.
Meh.
I mean, talk about a genre that got really big.
Yeah, 100%. So, for good reason.
All right, John, do you have 20 more minutes to chat about what you're watching these days?
Yeah, absolutely I do.
Right.
Right before this, I just finished episode 3 of The Chair Company. I know that's something huge on your list.
And... yeah, I've completed The Chair Company, and I will say The Chair Company was a weird show. Tim Robinson, if you don't know Tim Robinson, he is the king of cringe humor, and being an awkward male trying to navigate awkward situations. His movie Friendship on HBO with Paul Rudd is incredible. It is awkward and very uncomfortable at times. Very uncomfortable. Like when he eats the soap. I mean,
I haven't seen Friendship, but it doesn't surprise me.
Put that on your list.
Okay.
But yeah, The Chair Company was one of my favorite shows of this year. as they work through, like, was there an actual conspiracy? And, you get to the very beginning and it's like the chair broke, and you get to the end and there was this conspiracy, and then it's tied to the investment made in his wife's business. And
spoilers, man, you're ruining it for me. But no, I from what I'm gathering, like, I think You Should Leave. It was my introduction to Tim Robinson.
Okay. Which is great if people haven't watched it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. 3 seasons. There's a lot of just, I would say every episode has its hits and misses. It's like an SNL show where you're going to remember the hits, you're going to forget the misses. But this show is like that, but HBO is like, oh, we can make an actual story around that.
Yeah.
It's great.
And then they did. And as I've been enjoying that, I've also been enjoying Apple TV's latest, Pluribus. Are you watching Pluribus?
I am not, but that is a huge discussion point of my friends group right now. Another Vince Gilligan, and that dude does not miss. For those
Really
uninitiated, Vince Gilligan was the guy behind Breaking Bad, which people view as one of the greatest shows of all time. But also, it's prequel, sequel, whatever you want to call it, Better Call Saul, which a lot of people view as the superior of those two. And then he's off to the races with another one. Tell me about Pluribus so far.
We're back in New Mexico. This show is based around a main character, Carol, who there has been sort of an apocalypse, not really an alien invasion, but there has been this takeover where billions of people die as a result, and then those who are left, outside of 12 people in the world who are immune to this hive mind, become all part of one mind. Every single person is everyone. And so they know everything, and yet they still are figuring out emotion and human connection. They're not robots, but they also lost that. And so the story is Carol's journey as she takes a very different path from the other survivors, all but one of them. And so you have these kind of 3 different journeys, 3 different sets of journeys for Carol, who wants to put the world back the way that it was and believes that there's a way to do that and doesn't trust the hive mind, but also relies on them because she comes to believe that, and maybe erroneously, that they can't be a threat to her in the way that she thinks. And then you have 10 of the other 12 survivors who have decided to just lean into this because they're being treated like kings and queens. They're delivered whatever they want, whenever they want. And of course, the world is gone away, essentially. And so, there's nobody driving on the streets. There's, nobody is like, life doesn't happen anymore. It is just this hive mind that is focused on their own survival, really, which is interesting. And I don't want to give too much away because you definitely need to watch this show. But Vince Gilligan delivers in a huge way. And like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, it's not just the story and the plot lines and the characters that are so great. You get these beautiful shots and the cinematics. And I mean, watching the show is just incredibly satisfying. I'm excited for you to start it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's definitely on the list. Right now, we just started Stranger Things. We finished the first episode of the final season last night. I hate that Netflix is doing this Stranger Things 5, Volume 1, right? Volume 2, Volume 3.
But this is their way of saying, we're still binge. We're still binge. But they look at HBO and they look at the other serialized shows and go, there's a reason for that. And it's interesting. Netflix said for a long time, we'll never do ads. And then Netflix said, we'll never partition out our franchises and releases. And then they said they would never go into theaters. And now they're trying to buy Warner Brothers. So, Netflix is evolving from this hyper-focused streaming company to a, mega media giant that does all these different things. And I think that's what you're seeing happen with Stranger Things.
Yeah, and then on top of that, like, I know that it's a Sony movie, but we've actually seen Netflix movies go into theaters. K-pop Demon Hunters, which of course it went into theaters, and of course it did gangbusters. My son's seen that, I think 20 times now, and our niece Addie, I think, actually has him covered on that. But, they keep moving the needle on what they're doing. But, we watched first episode last night. It was pretty good. It's really weird to see how old the kids are because, this whole 5-season show is intended to happen in the 80s. and I don't think it's 1980. This one is set in 87, and you're telling me that these kids only age 7 years? And it's also weird where, like, Millie Bobby Brown is married and has a kid now, and she's playing a 17-year-old, and it's, it's odd, but hey, we'll stick through it. It's good. We
Yeah,
also,
the girls are enjoying it. I'm not a Stranger Things guy. I watched season 1, fell out of it after that. I have been watching it over their shoulders as they've been watching this latest season, and it does feel a little awkward with how old the actors are that are playing these high school characters. But, again, not really my show. So, I'm happy that everybody has it back, and it seems like people are pretty pleased with it so far.
the other show that we just finished, my wife saw, and this may tip the cap a little bit. She saw Glenn Powell on SNL, and this was when he was there for Running Man, and she's like, I want to watch Twisters, I want to watch The Hitman, I want to watch Chad Powers, and I was like, say what now? And so we very quickly ran through that, and boy,
Fun.
that was fun to rewatch end to end. And then it was the same moment I had where when the credits roll on episode 6, she's like, are you kidding me?
That's it.
Are you kidding me? And I was like, yep. And she's like, well, when's it going to come back? And I explained, I'm like, well,
College football season.
college football season, because Sanford Stadium's in use right now, and they film in, downtown Georgia or downtown Athens and Atlanta. And she's like, we have to wait a year. I'm like, yeah, we have to wait a year.
Yeah. Have you guys watched The Beast in Me on Netflix with Claire Danes and Matthew Reese?
No, but that looks incredible. Claire Danes in Homeland, it almost looks like it's taking it a step forward. And Amanda Seyfried's in that too, isn't she?
I don't know. It's not Amanda Seyfried. It's oh, what's her name? She's just come on the scene and she's gotten bigger and bigger. I can't place her name right now. She acted with she was in another thriller movie with an evil husband. What is her name?
Does she play Nina?
Yeah, what's her name?
Brittany Snow.
Brittany Snow. That's her name. Yes. And she's great. I've really enjoyed her acting.
Oh, she
So
was
that's
an
a good
ex.
one.
Okay. Yeah.
You guys should definitely add that. That is another one that has a bunch of different twists. You think you know what's going to happen, and then it makes you question whether you know what's going to happen. And it kept me all the way through the end. It was sneakily like one of my top 5 shows. Task was my favorite show of 2025, but that is definitely on the list, top 5.
Okay, now let me ask you about a show, and I'm gonna ask your thoughts on it and your love for it. I'm gonna just say 2 words to see if this resonates. Fruity Pebbles.
Oh, I mean, it sounds familiar, and I feel like I should be able to place it, but
Yeah,
I can't.
this would be a Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and one of
Okay,
the
well,
husband's nicknames for his wife being Fruity Pebbles because of the way her urine tastes.
wow, I don't think I picked up on that at all. I did watch the show because it is a train wreck show that it candidly reminds me that life is not so crazy for me. And I approach things pretty rationally. And so watching that show is a great reminder of how normalized my life is. But I did not pick up on that. It is great dramatic television. It's all a bunch of fucking lying, cheating, slimy people. And the funny thing is, if I can, it's going to sound bad. The dads are so much more normal than the moms. The dads have like their dad talk thing, and they're just these like normal Mormon dudes. You and I grew up in a very heavily Mormon
Yeah.
area. They're just normal dudes who are trying to like, get by and do their thing, and they're dealing with all of this madness. And I will tell you, I've always said, happy to be rich, but I don't want to be famous, right? I don't want that attention. And the only thing that would be worse than being famous and all the attention that you get directly is being married to somebody famous, but whose life and relationships and all of that is under a microscope, and inevitably that means you as the husband are going to have times where people are saying shit about you online, or your wife or your kids or whatever. No, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this was a show that started because it was a bunch of mom influencers is the word I'm looking for, on Instagram and TikTok that had a swinging conspiracy exposed, I
Sort
believe.
of.
Kind
Like
of?
they, I don't think they define swinging the way that Reddit would define swinging.
Okay.
But again, like the whole thing is a lot softer than it seems. It's just it's a lot of noise, it's a lot of chaos, and sort of like the modern version of Jerry Springer. I don't know what to say.
It's a Bravo show.
It is. It's just trashy reality TV, and I hate to say that it sucks me in. And I watch the whole thing, and it's just like put it on while you're working out in the gym, and these people are fighting with each other, and it's just like, oh, look at that.
This
I'm not
show
for that.
of all shows, it's so weird that I've had people from so many different kind of like sectors of my life recommend it to me, and I'm like, wait, you like it, and you like it, and you like it? Like, I have to check it out then.
It's like Michael Bay movies, like it just, hey, if you want something fun that's kind of mindless and you can put it on in the background, that's a good one. That's a good one. John, outside of TV, I've got a handful of movies I want to throw at you. Most of them I really liked that I watched recently. As you know, went to Italy with the girls, so we were on a couple of really long plane rides. We, had a stopover in New York and then flew from New York to Rome. Had a ton of time to watch some movies. I've got 3 good movies for you to watch. I've got 1 movie for you to desperately avoid. And then I've got 1 movie that is a classic that I watched with Olivia that I was like, oh my God, that's Vin Diesel. So, first 3 movies that I have for you.
The Babysitter is not a classic, but okay.
No, not that one. The first one is A Long Walk. And I think you actually saw this movie, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I did. I read the book too.
Okay, yeah, and I thought The Long Walk was really well done. I've seen it a couple times now because I watched it with Olivia and then watched it with Michelle, and I gave it an A-. I thought the pacing was really great. I thought the character development was really great. It stuck really well to the book, I thought, and I really enjoyed it. What did you think of The Long Walk?
I really liked the few key changes that they had. Man, the way that they were visceral with everything. They didn't hide anything. They didn't leave it up to the viewer's imagination. Like, they were very raw with it. And, like, dude, Mark Hamill doesn't miss. And him as the general, the colonel, whatever, the military man in charge of
it. I mean, and essentially he was the head of the country, right? Like that was
100%.
That was the whole thing. He was essentially
it was a dictatorship that, the country's falling apart, and they used the Long Walk to basically keep everybody in line. And they say, it's a lottery that you get to choose to sign up for, but who doesn't sign up for it? And it was just great from start to finish. And like you said, very true to the book, with a different ending that I thought was a much better ending, and then a couple different points between the boys that resonated in a much bigger way.
And then I will say that after the first time I watched it, I thought, who was the general? He was so good. And when I realized, looking it up, that it was Mark Hamill, I was blown away. You're right, Mark Hamill's amazing, but I mean, he embodied that character. I really didn't expect that from him. And wow, great movie, available on streaming now. As you guys are all getting into the holidays, couldn't recommend The Long Walk more. The next one that I've got on my list is A Normal Family. Have you heard of this movie, John? This released in 2023. This is a Korean film by Her Jin Ho. It is about a family, 2 brothers. One is a doctor. One is a high-powered defense lawyer who gets people out of all kinds of trouble. And their lines of work intersect in multiple ways in this movie. And they both have teenagers that get into some big trouble. And then they have to decide how they handle it. It's heart-wrenching. It is...
I'm adding it to my Letterboxd.
I mean, the depth of the movie is just so incredible, and the message is powerful. And as you see the characters develop and change, and they wrestle with their emotions and their feelings and their sense of right and wrong, and what it means to protect your child. What does it mean to protect your child in the moment, when you think about the rest of their life, this movie hits on some really huge themes, and boy, oh boy, it stuck with me. Didn't quite stick with me in the way The Long Walk did, where now every single time I get on the treadmill, I start looking at the speed and I'm like, don't fall below, blah.
4 miles an hour, yeah.
But yeah, I gotta say, A Normal Family is one of the 3 or 4 best movies I've watched all year. And then the third one that I've got on my list for you is a Channing Tatum thriller called Blink Twice. Have you heard of this?
Yes. Channing Tatum actually has had a couple movies this year that have been pretty solid, and Blink Twice like jumped out at me. It is interesting. Is the best way I can.
Did you watch it?
No, I have not watched it. It has been on my list because it's a fascinating premise, and that trailer sucks you in.
So not only did the trailer suck you in, I'm sitting 2 seats over from Michelle on the plane, and she's watching Blink Twice, and I'm watching something else, and I keep looking over. I keep looking at her screen. Finally, I tapped her. I was like, what the fuck are you watching? She was like, it's Blink Twice. I was like, well, that's next for me. And we both absolutely loved it. I would give it a B+. Like, without getting into the spoilers, there are definitely a couple of holes in the plot that kept it from being in the A grade, but it was well worth the watch. And it's pretty fast. It's not a super long movie.
Always nice to have those.
Okay, so John, what's the name of the dude on Always Sunny in Philadelphia who plays Charlie?
I could see his face. Oh my God. It's not Charlie Day.
It is Charlie. Okay, so Charlie Day is who I'm thinking of,
okay.
Right? I'm not really an Always Sunny fan. I never really got into it. People tell me all the time that I look like one of two people. They either tell me that I look like Charlie Day, which I find to be quite insulting, or they tell me that I look like Bradley Cooper, which he is a very handsome man. And so I take that as a huge compliment. So there's a little part of me, just a little part, that takes it personally when he makes shitty movies. And he made one of the shittiest movies that I've seen in the last 5 or so years. This movie called Burnt. Have you heard of it? Where he plays like a Gordon Ramsay type chef. And he has this crash out and then and he is just horrible. He is horrible. And the whole thing is like dealing with difficult people and all. But I will tell you, like there's a storyline with he and this, younger professional, and her dad is in the movie. And I thought watching it, if that was my child working for somebody like that, it would be fisticuffs. I mean, so I got to the end of the movie and I just thought, wow, that was a waste of time. That was not. You could say Bradley Cooper really got into character and he delivered the performance that character needed to deliver. But I will tell you, I did not enjoy it, and it did not make me think differently or better in any way about high-end dining.
The Bear is kind of my bar for how I view dining. I worked in a restaurant for a long time, but like
both of us.
Yeah, you worked in a nicer restaurant. I worked in Red Robin and then like kind of a mom and pop Italian restaurant. And so like The Bear is my bar. And when you see discourse online, it's like, this is what it's like to work in there, and seeing the stress and all of that. Like, that's what I imagine.
I tried to get into The Bear 3 times. I tried to start season 1 3 times, and I fell out of it 3 times. And I kept trying to start it because it kept telling me it was a comedy, and I don't understand how that is
not a comedy. That is a lie.
Yeah, it was not very comedic for me. So The Bear is not one that I follow. Okay, last movie that I had on my list, Vin Diesel in Saving Private Ryan. Obviously, the star character in Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah,
I'm watching Saving Private Ryan with Olivia, which was heart-wrenching. I mean, you can't watch that movie if you have been through the American school system and you actually took U.S. history seriously, and you know what happened on Normandy Beach and what happened on D-Day, and you watch Steven Spielberg bring that all to life. I mean, from the moment go until the end of the movie, you are gripped. One of Tom Hanks' very best performances. And it was one that she absolutely loved. Obviously, an A+ movie for me. She found it to be an A+ movie. Just incredible filmmaking.
Well, and I mean, dude, there's so much of that movie. First off, loaded cast, right? And loaded cast of a bunch of people before they blew up, very reminiscent of Band of Brothers. And the way that you talk about Vin Diesel there, I mean, that's obviously before the Fast and the Furious movies. That's before I believe
before
that's before
he was Vin Diesel.
Pitch Black. Yeah. It reminds me of Tom Hardy in Inception, where small bit part and then explodes.
Yep.
The scene where the dude freezes and watches his soldier friend have the knife slowly, like that. I watched that when I was a kid, and I have never forgotten that scene. And then
You're talking about when the dude is on the stairs.
Yes.
And the knife gets plunged into his chest and he's not even watching it. He had every opportunity to go up there and save him and doesn't. And then the German soldier comes out.
like tips his
and
cap.
and
Yeah. Like that
I mean-
that scene, and the German soldier's like shh, 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 and just like it's just like this visceral moment, and that has stuck with me for
Yeah.
decades.
really incredible movie. This weekend, we have on tap two things. The Jeff Buckley documentary, the Music Box documentary on HBO Max. That's something that Hallie's really excited for. So hopefully we'll be back next week to talk about that. And then finally, I've held out long enough. F1 is available to watch for free, and we are watching that tonight.
Yeah, F1 is sick. Well-paced movie. The authenticity is great. The things that I've chatted with my buddies about, our general consensus is it's a good movie if you don't know F1. If you know F1 and you are passionate about F1, it's an incredible movie. So I love this for you. I cannot wait to hear what you think about it. I have two movies from 2025 that I would love to touch on very quickly. I'm not going to touch on the kid movies. Weapons was, I know that came out in the summer, but I would be reminiscent if we did not talk about it. Remit.
You are being reminiscent.
Yes, sorry. I would be remit if we didn't talk about it.
Remit.
And
Third try's a charm.
yes. I'm not even going to try a third time. You've corrected me twice, but that movie end to end is phenomenal. Lots of twists along the way. Weirdly, the director was one of the kids from The Whitest Kids You Know, which was a comedy group. So the fact that he very much like Jordan Peele went to horror. He's also directing the Resident Evil movie, which he said, I'm doing my own thing with it. I'm not going to try and touch on the games. Like, I can't wait to see what he comes out with next, because that movie was freaking phenomenal. The other one I want to touch on, 28 Years Later, which not at all what I expected.
Wow, powerful.
Powerful, and not like, yes, there are zombies. Yes, there are moments, or I guess they're not zombies, they're rage-infected creatures, but it's a coming-of-age movie where it's this boy who figuratively and literally is leaving the walls and seeing what the world is really like, and kind of his journey into adulthood. And then obviously you and I, lost our mother to cancer. Like, that moment just hits you.
It does.
When he has to say goodbye, and then seeing how he then responds. And I can't wait for Bone Temple, which comes out in just, I think, a few weeks, January 16th. Like, cannot wait.
Yeah, you and I, both big horror, thriller. Olivia, also really big on the thrillers. Can't wait for that one to come out. John, I can't thank you enough for all the time, all of the expertise, the perspectives on everything that happened at the Game Awards last night, sharing everything you're watching. Excited to get back together with you soon and do another one of these.
Absolutely. I look forward to these every time.
And to everybody else, thank you all for making the time to listen. We are wishing you all an incredible weekend. I hope you find some fun along the way.